Before history is written, it's played. Before it's frozen in time, it's fought one shift at a time. Before it's etched in silver, it's carved in ice. What happens next will last forever. The Stanley Cup Final on ABC and ESPN Plus begins Saturday.
I am Madison Timmons.
I'm Chris Soucy.
And we're paranormal specialists who live in the most haunted city on Earth, Savannah, Georgia. Every day is Halloween in our line of work, so join us as we spin true tales of haunts, murders, and disturbing Savannah history. I'm Madison.
I'm Chris.
And welcome to the most haunted city on Earth. Hello, and welcome back to another episode of The Most Haunted City on Earth. My name is Madison Timmons.
I'm Chris Soucy.
And today we are here with Jenny Butcher with the True Crime Convention with the case study of John Wayne Gacy.
Hi.
Yes. Hello, Jenny. Jenny is here partially to talk about the convention, but also to be our true crime connoisseur, if you will, true crime fanatic, representative of Graveface. But yeah, Jenny, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah, so my name is Jenny Butcher. I work with Graveface in many aspects, and we're very excited about the convention coming up. So we're trying to get the word out about that. I don't want anyone to be like, oh, I wish I'd have heard about that. I would have gone. I'm like, no, if you know anything at all about John Wayne Gacy or are interested at all in anything true crime, this is a really big deal.
Yes.
Lots.
And Ryan Graveface is a true expert on Gacy, all things Gacy. He has the largest private collection of Gacy artwork
in the world. The largest collection of memorabilia, Gacy memorabilia in the world, because that includes documents and other items. He does have a lot of his artwork, but a lot will be revealed.
Right. Ooh. And if you ever come down to Savannah, you can go to Graveface Museum, which is right off of River Street, and see a lot of Gacy's artifacts.
They also have a location in Chicago as well.
That's correct.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. And the convention is going to be here in Savannah. What is the date of it?
The date is Saturday, May 11th, and that's at the Savannah Convention Center on Hutchinson Island. It's going to start probably about 11 a.m., early check-ins 10 a.m., and it's going to go all day. It is just the one day, but it is jam-packed.
Very nice. Yeah, if y'all have been listening for a while, we had Ryan's wife, Chloe, on the show to talk about true crime and things like that. I love true crime personally. Chris is a little squeamish with it, but
I'm lukewarm on it.
Lukewarm, but that's okay. So today we're going to be doing a fusion, if you will, of paranormal and true crime. Because we've kind of talked about on the show a little bit that true crime oftentimes has a hand into the paranormal because these traumatic incidents can leave behind residual energy. It can leave behind hauntings when people are going through traumatic situations. They can leave ghosts behind. And
a lot of times people will seek out these locations specifically to tap into that energy. So you'll get a lot of people showing up at scenes of crimes with Ouija boards, to do seances, to do things of that nature, because they believe that the nature of the crime causes a greater chance for there to be paranormal activity.
So we aren't condoning to show up at a crime scene with a Ouija board, but if you do, let us know what you found.
Wait.
I'm not condoning it.
No, we're not condoning it. But if you've already gone and broken the rules.
Exactly. So, Jenny, what was your introduction into true crime? How'd you get into it a little bit?
That's a really good question. It's something I just kind of always remember being part of my life. I was always kind of fascinated with true crime, and in particular, like the specifically notorious cases, like John Wayne Gacy, Ed Gein, Dahmer, things like that were these larger than life super murderers that I just kind of was so curious about. So I just kind of started doing a little bit of research when I was probably in my teens, and then throughout my 20s got more and more into it, started reading a lot about different serial killers, different collections of stories about serial killers, and then books about specific serial killers. And then when when I met Ryan, I was like, oh, this is like, no, you don't understand. We're kind of the same person. Like, I also have a clown room in my house. Like,
Do you really?
Yeah, I do. Yeah. You
Oh
guys will
my-
have to
I
come
do not
see
approve.
us sometime. Oh, that's right. Yeah, no. I'll have Megan come up.
Yeah, Megan will be happy to stand in your creepy clown room.
But yeah, when he and I first started talking about working together, he had mentioned this convention, and I was like, "Oh my gosh, this is so exciting!" Because I mean, it being John Wayne Gacy, it's one of the cases that a lot of people have studied pretty deeply.
Sure.
And he was like, "No, you have no idea. There's new stuff. There's it's groundbreaking." And I've had the privilege to screen the pilot episode of the documentary, and I'm like, I need more. I can't wait. I can't wait for more. Like, this is so exciting.
That's fantastic.
Yeah, we've kind of had the pleasure of talking to Ryan about Gacy sometimes because Graveface also has a location, well, not their museum, but their music venue, which is right next door to us.
And very convenient.
Yeah, very convenient. And yeah, so we've talked to Ryan so many times, and he'll tell you information on Gacy that I'm like, he'll tell you when you watch the Netflix documentary, he's like, that's true, that's not true, this didn't happen, that happened. And I'm like, this is crazy how much information you have stored in your brain. But yeah, I'm excited for the true crime convention. I think it's going to be really cool. So I know some of y'all are true crime fanatics along with paranormal. So if you're going to be in Savannah anytime on May 11th, definitely come check it out.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a perfect time to make a trip to Savannah anyway. Beautiful weather.
Yes.
Beautiful time of the year. If you're here in Savannah, by all means go. And if you're thinking, I'd like to get down to Savannah, that weekend's a perfect weekend.
And where do they get tickets?
They can get tickets at gravefacemuseum.com.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, they start at $29.95, I think, and go up from there. There's general admission, VIP. Some of the packages come with extra perks like merch. Some come with snacks and drinks. And there's going to be a lot of stuff there.
Very
Great.
nice.
Wonderful.
That sounds great. Well, all right, y'all, let's dive into this true crime.
You should do Alice Riley since it's on Hutchinson Island. You should just real quick knock it out.
Oh,
We haven't done it forever.
It's been a while.
Yeah, it's been a while. Okay, well, I'll give y'all.
Right where he murdered.
Yeah, so JT just chimed in with he wants to hear the story of Alice Riley because, as y'all know, JT loves Alice Riley. He's got it tattooed on his arm. Yeah, and so basically, to give you the rundown, it's a very convoluted story, so bear with me. But basically, Alice Riley came to Savannah in 1733 with her husband. There's no record if they were actually married, but they were partners.
They're obviously partners. Yeah.
With her partner, Richard White, and they were Irish indentured servants. So basically what that meant is they had to work for a certain amount of time before they could be freed citizens in the colony of Georgia. It was very common for immigrants at the time. And so they particularly went to go work on a cattle farm that was across the river on Hutchinson Island, where the convention is going to be. And that was being run by a man named William Wise. William Wise was kind of notorious in town because he had a really bad reputation of being very heavy-handed with his servants. He was just a gross man in general. But he particularly was very brutal on Alice. Alice was probably about 17 years old, and he would have been anywhere in his 30s to 40s, maybe even older.
Maybe even older, yeah.
There's not a lot of documentation on this, obviously, because it's the 1700s. Things don't get recorded very well, but regardless. So Alice was in charge of bathing William Wise. And so he had this disgusting long hair. That was like one of his notable features. He had very gross, matted,
And this was the
dirty
period
hair.
of powdered wigs.
Yes.
But William Weiss did not want to invest in a wig, so he powdered his own hair. And when he powdered his own hair, it would create this clumpy, horrible, gray, nasty mess that Alice would then have to wash.
Yes.
And that actually comes up in the lore. Whether it's true or not, anybody's guess.
Yes.
But because of the nature of the idea that his hair was a gray, stringy mess of grossness that she had to wash, it does come up.
Yes. So Alice was in charge of that. And basically, because she was oftentimes in close quarters with William Wise, he would take advantage of situations like that, which unfortunately was very common for the time period, where masters would abuse their servants. And Alice eventually fell pregnant to William Wise. Now, this absolutely devastated her. Obviously, she was in some form of a relationship with Richard. She was very young. Also, that would not be taken very well at the time as an unmarried woman to have a baby with a random man. And I'm sure that would have been how it was taken, not in the way that it actually happened. It would have been blamed on her. And so Alice decided she was going to hatch a plan with Richard against William Wise. So what they did is one evening, Alice was bathing William Wise, probably in a bucket of sorts, if not a bathtub of some nature. Regardless, though, the way the lore goes is she grabbed him by his long hair and pulled his head backwards into the pail of water or the bathtub or whatever, the water in general. And Richard started strangling William Wise, and Alice continued to hold his head down until he finally was dead, essentially drowning him in his own filth. Mm-hmm. So, JT said, hell yeah. And so, obviously, murder is still murder in the eyes of the law, even if you think they deserve it. And so Alice and Richard went running. Now, where they went running is very foggy, just because some people say they ran to Isle of Hope. Some people said they were going towards Charleston. There was a lot of...
Most people believe they couldn't get off the island.
Yeah.
Off of Hutchinson. Hutchinson is very small. It's just a little slip of land, but it's the Savannah River that you have to cross, and the Savannah River is notoriously dangerous to
Exactly.
try to cross.
Fast.
Yeah, it's a
Yes.
fast river.
Yeah.
And so they were very quickly caught, and they were both sentenced to death by hanging. Now, it was actually Richard who would go first. The rumor is that Richard would hang for 3 days before succumbing to the hangman's noose, which sounds insane in today's mindset, but that was actually very common for the time because executions were about the only form of public entertainment. And so what people would do is back in that time, they would come out to the public executions. They would bring their kids, they bring a little picnic, and they watch the show pretty much.
And this all took place in what is now Wright Square
Yes.
in downtown Savannah. It was also where the courthouse was. It was where the jail was, and it was where the prisoner's cemetery was.
Yeah, the one-stop shop for the justice system.
I had no idea that all of that was there.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, the long building on the southwestern corner was the original burial grounds for Savannah, for all of Savannah. So, yeah, they actually moved all those graves to Colonial Park Cemetery, famously forgetting to match the bodies with the tombstones.
Yes.
And causing a mass desecration of grave right there in Wright Square.
Mm-hmm. And
the gallows were a standing feature, by the way.
Yes.
Those gallows were up, and they didn't build them for each hanging. They stood. So you always knew that this was a law and order town. Mm-hmm. So it was a 2-story structure that they would hang people by. And then they would leave the bodies as, sort of a warning to anyone who's thinking of committing any form of crime. It's like, oh, by the way, that's what happens to people who break the law here.
And there was also the fun little added bonus, which is oftentimes, the people who are doing the executions were probably not the most morally standing individuals, but what people do is they pay the executioner a little bit of money, and he would do one of two things. He would either take a couple knots out of the noose, because there's a perfect number to clean break a neck. I'm not going to tell you what that number is, but basically there's a perfect number. And if you take a couple knots out, it half breaks the neck. And the law states that you had to hang by the neck until dead. So that meant they got multiple days of entertainment out of one person's misery. But, right. Well, the other one is if they really wanted a show, they would add a couple knots, and that would cut the head clean off.
Pop the head.
Oh, my.
Yeah. So that was unfortunate.
Provided the weight was sufficient.
Right.
Because some people don't weigh enough to cause that torque.
Exactly.
But
they'll
most
try.
adult males will. Yeah.
Yeah. Alice, though, when she got brought down to the gallows, she proclaimed to everyone that she was a child. So they stayed her execution. They allowed her to give birth. It also is a little foggy of how long she got to have her child and also what happened to James.
We have no idea what happened.
Because there's some rumors that say she tried to say that it was James Oglethorpe's child so that he would get to live with the Oglethorpe family and have a better life. And then there were also rumors that, which more than likely is what happened, is that the child died very shortly afterwards because he was so young. But regardless, she did not get to keep the child for very long. And so Alice got marched back down to the gallows, and she would become the first woman in the colony, specifically the colony of Georgia, not the state of Georgia, because Washington, Georgia will have our next for that one.
They get into a
Yeah.
tussle about that.
That is the state of Georgia, not
it's
the
the
colony.
state of Georgia. It's not the colony of Georgia.
But
the state government had nothing to do with passing the sentence on Alice Riley.
so Alice is probably our most commonly seen spirit. People experience her in Wright Square all the time. They claim that they see a woman with fiery red hair and a tattered dress, and she'll come up to people yelling, "Where's my baby? Have you seen my baby?" And then, most people do the normal thing, which is to run. But there is actually, from what I have heard, there are police documents of people claiming
Filing reports
that Alice Riley tried to come up and take their children away from them. And so it's actually been kind of, I know, right?
Creepy.
And so interestingly, there is, that was for a while there, a hazing thing that the police department did where they'd send the rookies down to the Alice Riley calls because they know Alice Riley is probably not going to be there when they get there. But
And, again, local lore states that Alice Riley pulls the Spanish moss out of the trees
Yes.
at Wright Square because it reminds her of William Weiss's hair, his gray stringy hair. And that's the reason there's no moss in the trees. And what is generally interesting is there's no moss in the trees in Johnson Square either, which
For
is
a different
which is one
reason.
square up, and everybody's like, But what I find intriguing of Wright Square is it's not the whole square. There is Spanish moss, oftentimes in the southeastern corner of those trees. Now, the reason why that's interesting is Spanish moss is incredibly invasive and very contagious in trees. That is more suspicious than anything else that there would be trees without Spanish moss when there are trees present with Spanish moss. Like, if none of them have Spanish moss, there are explanations. There are soil conditions. There are all kinds of things that you could claim is affecting it. But to have trees with Spanish moss alongside trees without it, that's just baffling.
I also always heard, and this will be my last point on Alice Riley, I always heard the rumor that Spanish moss does not grow where innocent blood was shed.
Innocent blood was shed. And the funny thing
Which
is
is romantic,
there
I
is
think.
a correlation that iron does affect how whether or not Spanish moss does grow. And so any blood that put a sufficient amount of iron into the soil could cause differentiations in how the moss grows. So that's not an entirely made up thing. It's just something that got fine tuned over time.
Yeah, to a much more poetic way of saying that. Right. But anywho, so that's your Savannah true crime moment,
Right.
I guess. But yeah, so we'll start.
Happened on the very island where the true crime convention will be taking place on May 11th.
Yes. So just know that's what happened there. But yeah, so we'll start out with the Atlas vampire in Stockholm. Yeah. So this occurred in 1932. So in Stockholm, a prostitute named Lilly Lindeström was found murdered in her apartment, which she used for her work. The Atlas vampire is the nickname given to an unidentified assailant connected with the murder of Lilly Lindeström in Stockholm, Sweden in 1932. The case is infamous not only because the murder was never solved, but also because of the particularly gruesome details. So Lilly Lindeström was a 32-year-old prostitute who lived in the Atlas area of Stockholm, which is how the nickname Atlas vampire came to be associated with the case. She was last seen alive in the evening of May 4th, 1932. And a few days later, on May 7th, she was found dead in her small apartment by police after neighbors reported that she had not been seen. The crime scene was extraordinarily macabre. Lindström was found face down on her bed, naked and bludgeoned to death. The most chilling detail, which led to the case's notoriety, was that police believed her body had been drained of some of her blood. A blood-stained gravy ladle was found nearby.
Why?
Which led investigators to suspect that the murderer might have used it to drink her blood, thus earning the murderer the moniker Atlas Vampire. Despite the thorough investigations, the police never apprehended a suspect, and the identity of the Atlas Vampire remains unknown. The murder weapon was never found, and there was no conclusive leads from forensic evidence at the time. Over the years, the case has become one of the most discussed unsolved mysteries in Swedish criminal history, often revisited in true crime literature and documentaries for its shocking and unusual nature. So the Atlas Vampire case, with its gruesome details and unresolved nature, has inevitably sparked various paranormal theories and speculations over the years.
But it has vampire in the title.
Right. It just comes with the territory.
Speculation.
So, number one, vampire legends. The connection to vampire mythology is the most prominent paranormal aspect of the case. The legend of vampires, creatures who drink human blood to sustain their immortality, has been a part of folklore in many cultures for centuries. And the use of a ladle to possibly drink the blood led people to associate the murderer with these mythological beings. Also, the cursed location. Some have speculated about the area of Atlas in Stockholm being cursed or haunted. This idea stems from the violent nature of the crime and the fact that it remained unsolved, leading a sense of unresolved malevolence in the area. Such locations often attract stories of hauntings or paranormal activity. Occult practices. Another theory positions itself that the murderer might have been part of an occult ritual. The draining of blood, if indeed used for consumption, could be interpreted as an attempt to perform a ritualistic act, which is sometimes seen in occult practices that involve blood as a medium for gaining power or immortality. And then, obviously, investigations as well. Over the years, there have also been attempts by psychic detectives and mediums who claim to communicate with spirits to solve the mystery. These individuals often try to use their abilities to uncover new details or provide leads that have eluded traditional investigative methods. While these paranormal elements add a layer of intrigue and horror to the Atlas Vampire case, it's important to note that they are speculative and not supported by concrete evidence. So take that as you will. But nonetheless, it is important to note on the true crime side of things, this is 1932. Forensics were not great for the time.
Not the best forensics in the world, no, absolutely.
So, I mean, they didn't even have fingerprint technology back then. So, I mean, the Swedes are very technologically advanced. So I don't think, at least, that they were doing. Yeah,
that was not a common practice in law enforcement for the longest time.
They probably weren't even powdering for them.
I think you'd be surprised at how recent a development like fingerprints are, or DNA evidence is. You know, it seems like it would have been forever, but it's not. And the question then comes: can you beat a person to death with a gravy ladle?
I was thinking the same thing. Like, I couldn't.
They weren't, identifying the weapon. I was like,
there.
and she was bludgeoned. And I'm like, how big a ladle?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, that's true. Well, I mean, if you're a strong enough person and you really have some...
It's a solid enough ladle.
Yeah, exactly. Well,
because it's one of those bizarre things that, that you wouldn't come up with a speculation as to weapon either. When you bludgeon somebody with a blunt object, it's like, well, it's roughly, a cylinder, a rock, what was it? So gross.
Yeah. So there you go. If you have any Swedish listeners and you know any more updates, or if you've had a paranormal experience at that location, let us know.
We have a few.
We do? We got some Swedes out there? Great.
Excellent.
Let us know if you've been there. But yeah, the second one is going to be the Hinterkaifeck murders in 1922. The Hinterkaifeck murders remain one of the most disturbing unsolved crimes in German history. On the night of March 31st, 1922, 6 members of the Gruber family were brutally murdered at their isolated farmstead, Hinterkaifeck, located in the rural area north of Munich, near the town of Schrobenhausen in Bavaria.
That sounds difficult to
Yes. You know, the German word. So I know we probably have some German listeners too. So
Lots of Germans.
yeah. So excuse my German pronunciations. Don't come for me. Anyways. So these victims were Andreas Gruber, 63, the patriarch of the family. Kazia Gruber, 72, Andreas' wife. Victoria Gabriel, 35, the daughter, who was also a widow. Kazia Gabriel, 7, Victoria's daughter. Joseph Gabriel, 2, Victoria's son, rumored to be fathered by Andreas due to incestuous relations.
Oh, goodness.
And then Maria Baumgartner, 44, the family's maid, who had arrived on the farm just hours before the murder. This sounds like the start of Clue. Or like...
Introduced
incredible.
all the characters.
Yes.
What year was this again?
1922.
Okay.
1922.
Yes.
I actually think that's close to where I grew up.
Really?
I think it is. Like, because we were at Kaiser Concern.
Schrobenhausen?
We were in Kaiser Concern in Amberg, Germany, which is just a rural area north of Munich.
So you were in a similar village.
So it's similar, yeah. Little egg. That's what Amberg was.
Yeah.
Called that because it's an egg shape. Anyway, I do think I was close to these places. Not that I mean I was like 5 to 10, so I didn't. I was like I was investigating murder.
Yeah.
but it's interesting.
This was also...
I know the countryside, I should say.
Yes. So the events leading up to the murders, in the days before the murders, Andreas Gruber reported several strange occurrences. Footprints in the snow leading from the forest to the farm, but not returning. Unfamiliar sounds in the attic, and a newspaper that no one in the household had bought. Moreover, the house keys disappeared a few days before the incident. So that's creepy.
That's kind of got that people living in the walls.
Yes.
Yeah. People who
People are hiding out.
Yeah, you always hear
eating
that.
your
You're
food
like,
while
yeah,
you're-
you eat your
Yes.
food. You set up a security camera. Someone comes out of the
yeah.
ceiling and starts
Yeah.
eating your food. What a creepy thought.
People under the stairs.
Yeah,
sort of
exactly.
vibe. Yeah.
Ooh, yeah.
I like it.
Very. The discovery of the bodies. So the bodies were found on April 4th. Mind you, the murders happened on March 31st. So that's multiple days of just rotting bodies. So the bodies were found on April 4th, 1922, after neighbors had became concerned about not having seen the family for several days. The victims have been lured into the barn one by one, where they were killed with blows to the head from a pickaxe.
First, how do they know that?
Right.
That's a good question.
How do they
They
know that they
reviewed
came
the
in one by
surveillance
one?
footage.
Yeah, it's like, yeah.
Where the
Maybe there were like maybe there wasn't enough sign of any kind of struggle. Like they were
That's
just
what I was
ambushed,
thinking.
and they would have had
Yeah.
to have been one at a time if they all got ambushed. You know,
Unless it was like 5 guys with pickaxes, you know.
that's
Right.
true. That's true.
Although,
Or it was the neighbor.
Also, pickaxe. Intriguingly enough, when we lived in Germany, we used to go on these things called Wandertags or Volksmarches, where you would walk around and we all had canes that they gave us, and one of the canes they gave us was a pickaxe. It was a small pickaxe, and it was used. You know, when you get to like really rocky terrain, you grab onto like the next rock to pull yourself up.
Okay, Yukon
And
Cornelius.
so they were it was kind of strangely small, but as a child it was like, this is a weapon. You know, you just gave me a weapon, and then I terrorized my sister with it. So
Nice.
As one does.
Yes.
yeah, you're supposed to. Them's the rules.
Yeah, they handed you the paper that said, this is the condition of us giving you this. But
I was a kid. No contract would be binding.
That's
if
true.
I signed off.
But the perpetrator then went into the house and killed young Joseph and the maid, Maria Baumgartner. So,
Pickaxe.
The
I'm
pickaxe.
still working on the pickaxe because that's super dramatic.
It is.
That's a super dramatic way to take somebody out.
If this is your one mass murder, then, might as well have some
Might as well
fun
go,
with
yeah,
it.
yeah.
But-
Swing for the fences, as it were.
Yes. So the initial investigation was hampered by several missteps, including the disturbance of the crime scene by several community members and the lack of forensic techniques.
It was 1922.
Exactly.
We talked about the hatchet murder.
Lizzie Borden.
And how her crime scene was obliterated. Like, everybody walked through that crime scene. And everybody.
Still happens today.
Yeah,
People
it
walk
was.
around and people are like, no, you can't do that.
Please don't touch
Like,
that.
how many people have been in here? Well,
Yeah.
20. It's like,
Yeah.
20?
Yeah.
But various people were questioned, including a neighboring farmer, Lorenz Schlittenbauer.
Oh, he did it.
Yeah, it was who found the bodies and had personal motives linked to his relationship with Victoria and disputed paternity claims over Joseph.
Dun, dun, dun.
Sounds like it's Lorenz. But anyways, despite extensive police efforts, no conclusive evidence was ever found to definitively identify the killer. Theories ranged from a robbery gone wrong,
Really wrong.
Was
Yeah.
anything missing? Like,
Right.
Well, once you've pickaxed the third person, you have to think, this robbery's gone way off the tracks.
someone had a plan.
What am I...
even though there was no money and valuables were found at the scene. So,
Okay.
but the other theories included a personal vendetta, but none could be substantiated with hard evidence, which does happen a lot. But anyways, the farm was eventually demolished in 1923. They're like, this was too much.
Yeah, this is
you know. But
Wait, that's just a year later.
yeah.
So a year of them going, that place bums me out. Demolish it. Get rid of it.
Literally, they're like, we could do more.
We could do more.
I mean, it is pretty horrific,
Yeah.
like, crime scene. That's the kind of thing. Is
They
like,
weren't thinking forward about the tourists.
Yeah,
They're like,
yeah.
we got to start over.
Turn this into an Airbnb.
You can sleep in the very barn where 3 people were
Pickaxe.
pickaxed, or 4.
4 people
4
were
people were pickaxed.
and then the house if for extra money.
yeah.
So
For extra money, we'll give you a bed.
yeah. Following the continued interest and intrusion by the public and media. So it was the public and media. They were like, nope,
Oh, yeah.
get rid of it.
Yeah.
That's sound. That's a sound response to
No,
really macabre,
we want to
media
go
people.
see it. We could still probably
It's a
find
good
the
response.
coordinates. We could probably find the coordinates. I'm sure
I'm
they're
sure.
on Reddit.
It's probably like an apartment building right now, and people are like, I don't know why, but I hear screaming in the middle of the night all the time.
Well, we'll get into that. So the case has been revisited several times by different investigators and remains a popular subject in German media, reflecting both the horror of the events and the frustrations of the unsolved status of the case. The Hinterkaifeck murders continue to fascinate and horrify due to gruesome nature of the killings. And there have been various books and documentaries and articles written on this. But onto the paranormal side of things. So paranormal speculations arose when locals later reported seeing shadows and hearing voices around the abandoned farm. But before the murders, there were also premonitions and odd occurrences. So Andres Gruber reported several disturbing occurrences like we talked about. And then these incidents gave him dreams of a foreboding tone, suggesting that there was some supernatural force that might have been at play.
Interesting. Cursed.
Yes. After the murders, locals and paranormal enthusiasts speculated about ghostly activity at Hinterkaifeck. They reported hearing strange noises and footsteps that continued to follow them. There was also the psychics that would draw interest, who attempted to contact the spirits of the victims to uncover clues about the murderer or to help the spirits find peace. Now, none of this provided any verifiable evidence besides just, sometimes getting names and things like that. But I think a lot of it people experience are residual hauntings.
That's so creepy. Like, I can't imagine, like, visiting a location like that and then hearing footsteps behind you. I would die.
I wear a hard hat all the time.
Right. Hard hat all the time.
Hard hat all the time.
Yes.
But
or like a
Pickaxe
cast iron
proof hard
steel.
hat.
Yeah, because a hard hat might not going to stop a pickaxe.
can a ghost pickaxe actually kill you, though?
I don't want to find out. That's not a question.
That's
I was
true.
like, go ahead. You're a ghost, and you got a ghost pickaxe. Go right through my head.
A ghost pickaxe.
Ghost pickaxe. What's wrong with you? I don't know what the word is. I guess impressed. I'm impressed because that's a lot of people to kill with a pickaxe.
Yeah.
Like when you hear about like a mass murder, especially in today's day and age, you're thinking gun, and gun has many bullets, and so it makes sense that you can do that. But just the exertion,
Yeah.
you know.
It's gonna be exhausting.
It's gonna be
Rats
exhausting.
are gonna be killing
Right,
you.
exactly.
Like, oh.
So I'm like, you're looking for. Was Lawrence a big man? Was he a strong man?
Strong
Did he-
like ox.
Yeah, strong like ox. Is he
Yeah.
coming out and conk right in the head with the
I don't trust Lawrence,
yeah.
but he's dead by now, I'm sure. So.
Yeah, of course. But still.
But still,
Did they check his pickaxe?
probably
Also, did
not.
they find the pickaxe?
No.
Or were they like, this is a pickaxe? Could it have been something else that had pickaxe-like dimensions?
Maybe.
What's like a pickaxe that's not a pickaxe?
Well, really, it's just a big wedge of metal at that point, right?
Yeah, I suppose.
An axe in general, maybe.
I think because it's a spike.
Right.
So like a spike?
Maybe an ice pick attack.
Ah.
You-
Even a scythe might be able to do it.
That's a good point.
That would
like,
slice more.
Boom.
Yeah.
But if you just came straight down with it,
Maybe.
because it would create that hole in your head. Because a lot of people don't realize that scythes are actually very thick things. They're,
I didn't
the ones
know
that they used for actual reaping
Yeah.
were huge. You know, the double-handed scythe.
Yeah.
It's not a thin blade like a sword. It's kind of chunky.
Well, we need to get into a forensics lab where they have those mannequins where you can
Just-
deal
Just hit it
damage
in the head with a bunch of things.
and see what makes the most sense.
I
But-
mean, it's also possible that they're just used to pickaxe, violence.
Yeah,
And they're
yeah,
like,
that's
that's a pickaxe wound. If I've seen one, I've seen them all. That's a pickaxe wound.
I've seen plenty of this. But anyways, we're moving on to Florida.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
Closer to home.
Closer to home. And this is a pretty famous ghost, the ghost of Bellamy Bridge.
Oh, yeah, of course.
So in the 1800s, Elizabeth Jane Bellamy tragically died either from her wedding dress catching fire or from drowning in the river near Bellamy Bridge on her wedding night.
Those are polar opposite ways to die. In water or in
both
fire.
sound horrible.
Somebody
Or both.
should have been able to tell the difference.
Maybe her dress was on fire and they
And
were
she
like,
jumped
"Put her
into
out!"
the-
They threw
Yeah.
her in the water and
See,
she was like, this is too heavy. I can't. You guys.
They're like, oh, she's not coming back up.
Too many
But
layers.
she's not on fire
She's been
anymore.
extinguished.
Yeah, that's right. We saved her.
Oh,
But
we saved.
But yes, so the ghost of Bellamy Bridge is one of Florida's most famous ghost stories and centers around the historic Bellamy Bridge in Jackson County near Mariana. And this 19th century steel frame bridge spans the Chipola River and is reportedly haunted by the ghost of Elizabeth Jane Bellamy. And so here's a little bit of historical background that we could find. So Bellamy Bridge was constructed in 1914 and is one of Florida's oldest still standing steel bridges, but the legend predates the bridge itself. It was rooted in the early 19th century. The story revolves around Elizabeth Jane Crome, who married Dr. Samuel C. Bellamy in 1834. The couple's lives and Elizabeth's tragic death are the heart of the haunting tale. The most popular version of the story tells of Elizabeth Bellamy, who died tragically on her wedding night in 1837. And there are various versions of how this happened.
Sure.
So first, we have fire. So the most common tale is that Elizabeth was wearing her wedding dress and either came too close to a candle or a fireplace, causing her dress to catch fire. Her burns were fatal, leading her to her death shortly after the incident.
Oh, that sounds so horrible. And I bet stuff
Burning
like that
is one of
happened
the-
all the time.
Well,
Yeah.
yes,
Open
you
flames
hear
and
that.
big
Yes.
clothes, like
Being on fire just seems like one of the worst ways to
Yeah.
die.
Literally.
Because that's just all pain all the time. Your body is you pray these people go into shock.
yeah.
But when you're dealing with the kind of like it's on your clothes, so you're burning at an even keel all over, and so it's sticking to you, and there's just that stinging, aggravating pain, and your brain is trying to process it. It's horrible, just a horrible death.
So the other theory is fever. Another version suggests that Elizabeth died of malaria or another fever common in the swampy areas of Florida at that time. And following her death, she was reportedly buried near the Bellamy Bridge, which is where that particular paranormal aspect came in. And then the last one is drowning, that she had somehow fallen into the river in her wedding dress. Dress became too heavy, and then she drowned. Now, the ghostly sightings, for over a century, people... Also, did nobody think that maybe he killed her? Like
Apparently not. He could have set her on fire. He could have thrown her in the river.
It's always the husband.
It's
always the husband.
That's always the husband. Always. We got to go back to that pickaxe guy and say, did the husband do it?
Did the husband do it?
I mean, he died.
He axed himself.
He axed himself.
So for over a century, people have reported seeing a ghostly figure near the bridge, especially on misty nights. The ghost is often described as a woman in white, presumed to be Elizabeth wandering the area and sometimes depicted with flames engulfing her. Witnesses have reported eerie lights, cold spots, and sudden fogs. These sightings are often associated with Elizabeth's restless spirit haunting the site of her untimely death. She is also sometimes spotted floating over the water.
They're a flaming woman spirit.
Are there a lot of flaming women spirits?
No, specific flaming woman spirit. A recurring, kind of like a banshee-like.
I was thinking banshee when you said that.
Yeah.
It's kind of like a banshee. It's one of those prophetic.
Right.
You see a flaming woman, and it's a sign of impending doom or something.
Well, it's interesting, too, because she cries. A lot of people hear her cries.
That's
Sounds
upsetting.
very banshee.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's very banshee-like.
That's got some banshee. Got some banshee stank on her.
Yeah. Some visitors have reported hearing sorrowful wails or crying sounds near the bridge, particularly late at night.
Ooh.
And these sounds are often attributed
Well,
to...
how far away is this bridge? Hang on.
I was just thinking the same thing. I'm like,
Mariana.
it's probably not that far.
Mariana's on the Panhandle, so it's not that far.
Oh.
Yeah.
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 Isn't there that,
Let's
that,
go.
that
Let's do it.
That strange bridge on the Panhandle, too, where the ghost wolves are?
Ooh.
Yes. Enid grew up in Mariana, didn't she? Yeah. So
Yeah, the Dozier School and all that.
Yeah.
It's all there.
So we should ask Enid if she's been to this bridge. But Enid is one of our paranormal people of Savannah. So
passed on her TikTok to you.
Oh, in Oka?
Yes.
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 But yeah.
She goes by Enid.
Yes.
Because when you see that written out, it's not everyone's going to be like, oh, yeah, I know what that is.
But yes. So while you're looking it up, Chris,
Yeah,
visitors frequently report sudden cold spots or unexplained chills when they are near the bridge.
It's on a 5-hour drive.
Yeah,
I
that's
got
not
a
that
full
bad.
tank of gas.
Let's get it.
We'll see you later.
We'll see you later. And that is
Until
the end of
next time.
that's the end of this. But yes, there's also a general feeling of unease or a sensation of being watched, especially when you are walking on the bridge or along the adjacent trails. Individuals who visit the bridge are often encountered with the presence, or they see the ghost of Elizabeth, or they experience unexplained emotional responses. But today, there is the Bellamy Bridge Heritage Trail that allows visitors to explore the area and even cross the old bridge, providing an opportunity to delve into its haunted history firsthand.
I smell an overnight.
Yes. Hee hee hee.
Tee-hee.
So,
And bridges are notoriously haunted
yeah.
all around the country. Wherever you find bridges, and especially bridges that are not in full use, you find yourself like... because the superstition of bridges are that they anger water spirits.
Yes.
You know, they're causing a disruption to the flow of energy. You know, energy moves where the river goes. You put a structure over it that cuts it, it makes the spirits mad. And in olden time, they say they used to sacrifice a person right before they built a bridge so that the spirits would be appeased. That's one of the prevailing beliefs of the song London Bridge is Falling Down. They believe that they sacrificed a woman by putting her in a cell at the base of the tower. And that's where, because there's a whole phrase, a whole lyric about lock her up and throw away the key. And it's like, what is that part of the song?
Right.
What is My Fair Lady again? My Fair Lady is the sacrifice to the river spirit.
Good. That's perfect.
We're here just ruining childhood.
Yes. Well, we're going to have to do a part 2 of this because we have more that we could talk about, but we're out of time. But thank you, Jenny, for joining us today.
Thank you so much for having me. This was so cool.
And
I feel so cool.
One more time, plug your...
So yeah, True Crime Convention, case study, John Wayne Gacy, Saturday, May 11th at the Savannah Convention Center. Don't miss it if you have any interest whatsoever in true crime. If you think you know the Gacy case, you don't. I promise you, you will learn things. Lots to see and do. It's a jam-packed day, and it's literally going to be groundbreaking. So I'm excited.
And tickets are on sale at gravefacemuseum.com.
Perfect. So, yeah, well, thank you all so much for listening to today's episode. Jenny will have to bring you back for part 2. Of
I love that.
Yeah, I think it'll be fun. You can be our true crime person.
True crime contact.
Yes. But thank you all so much. We hope you have a wonderful rest of your day. And my name is Madison Timmons.
I'm Chris Soucy.
And stay spooky, y'all.